Welcome, everyone. Welcome to Black Men Speak. I'm your co host, VJR Stewart.
And I'm your co-host, TD3,
Let me get
otherwise
started.
known as Tommy D. Duncan III. It is Wednesday, April the 30th, 2025, Jimmy. And if it is Wednesday night,
It's certainly Black Men Speak. So let's give a shout out to Count Basie for providing our theme music, to our own studio and Forest Films for providing our virtual studio. And if you haven't already, please hit the like button to help us with the YouTube algorithm. Hit that notification bell so you'll be notified when new shows are uploaded. And also subscribe to the channel. If you already subscribed, it won't hurt to subscribe again, just in case you got bumped off our list. And if you're here watching the show live, invite a friend, family member, coworker, neighbor, so you guys have something interesting to talk about for the rest of the week. With that being said, Tom, let's do what we do best, which is bring information about the Black community to social media.
all right. Let's go ahead and get this party started. Folks, we have a jam-packed show for you today. So if you have not already done so and you're watching, do please go ahead and get on the chat line so we can hear your thoughts, questions, and see what you have to say about our stories that we're going to be presenting today. You know, it's been about at least 3 weeks, Jimmy, since we've had someone who we have lost, Jimmy. And this week we have a couple of announcements
Okay.
that we do have to make for folks that you may know directly or indirectly. But let's go ahead and get started. The music world and fans of soul and R&B are mourning the loss of Eddie Fluellen on April the 15th, a few weeks ago. Fluellen was a key member and co-founder of the 1970s group Switch, known for their smooth harmonies,
Yeah,
infectious
I'm switch.
grooves, and pioneering musicianship. Switch was a force on the Motown scene, and Eddie's contributions as a keyboardist and co-founder will forever resonate in the fabric of R&B history. For those of you, and I know that there were a lot of guys in the band, for those of you who were big fans of Switch, you might remember this face. That's Eddie Fluellen during his younger days, and then him more recently pointing to himself on the album. In the mid-70s, Switch moved to Los Angeles and was signed by the great Barry White, called White Heat. It issued one White-produced album, which failed to garner major attention. A chance meeting with Jermaine Jackson got the members an audition at Motown, where they wowed the executives with their musicianship, particularly their ability to switch from instrument to instrument during a song which led to renaming the group to Switch. Once signed by Motown and assigned to the Gordy label, Switch hit the top 10 with their debut single and the cool mid-tempo, and matter of fact, one of my favorite songs, They'll Never Be. That was probably my absolute favorite song by Switch, Jimmy.
Yeah, it's a very smooth song, Tom. Sorry for about the loss.
So, all that being said, we definitely want to offer our condolences to the Fluellen family, of course, to the music industry for this great loss. All right, we will now go on to our second acknowledgement for the day. Someone may know this beautiful and talented face, Alexis Herman, who made history as the first African American Secretary of Labor in the United States. She became an ancestor on April the 25th at the age of 77. Labor leaders and politicians alike are mourning the death of this Mobile, Alabama native. Herman promoted initiatives that helped bring the United States unemployment rate to a three-decade low and oversaw two raises to the minimum wage. Born in 1947 in a segregated Mobile, Alabama, she witnessed firsthand the racial violence that Black people were subjected to across the South. She once watched her mother collapse from exhaustion in the front seat of a public bus after a long day of work as a school teacher. When her mother refused to move to the back, the driver physically forced Herman and her mother off of the bus. She broke barriers at every stage, from fighting for school desegregation in her hometown, leading the Women's Bureau under President Carter at just 29 years old, to becoming a trusted voice for workers, women, and our community on the national stage. When Bill Clinton tapped her to lead the Department of Labor in 1997, she not only earned bipartisan support, but also shattered glass ceilings for future generations to come. So, Jimmy, we want to, of course, offer our condolences to the Herman family, and for these, many pioneers who did things. That's why it's so important that we own and understand our history, Jimmy, because at the end of the day, if we don't understand our history, we are bound to repeat.
We are doomed to repeat it, Tom.
Absolutely. So, with that being said, that is what we have today in terms of those who have passed along. We want to welcome the commish, Brother Ed Gray, who is on the chat line. I want to thank him for joining us this evening. And then, of course, Cousin Audrey K as well, two of our loyal supporters. So we want to thank them for joining us on the chat line. We want to see more of you. So next, what we'll do is we'll transition to you, Jimmy, as you had an announcement, exciting announcement to share with our followers as well.
Well, one quick thing in the support of the commission, he has a show every Saturday. Please go check it out. Very interesting show. But for the Black Men Speak family, I'm going to ask you guys to help me out. I have released my third book. It came out in January this year. It's called Angel Reborn. You can find it over on Amazon. I think one of my best works so far, even though I'm working on book number 4, which should probably come out this summer. But until then, please go check out Angel Reborn. I got a picture of it here. Don't mind the white angel. That wasn't my choice. I got overruled at the end by my editor and publisher. It was strictly done for commercial reasons. Trust me and you that the character in the book is really black. This angel is supposed to be black, but hey, sometimes you have to sell out for a paycheck. And I apologize up front, but the story is a very good story. It's a fantasy story. It's not like a religious book. Not preaching at you about anything. So please go check it out. And if you like it, write me a great comment. If you're a member of a book club, recommend it for your book club. And I'll be glad to maybe join by teleconference if it's not here local. When you guys have a meeting, if you have questions or want to discuss the book. Angel Reborn, people.
All right, folks. So look at it on bookshelves near you. And Jimmy, where can you get the book again?
Either at bookstores, or if they don't have it, they can order it, or Amazon for certain.
All right. Very good. Very good. All right, folks, let's go ahead and get started with our story. We've got a lot of interesting stories today. One that we were tracking really over the last year or so, Jimmy, in the state of Texas. Texas Senate Bill 2 passed last Thursday, and enabling taxpayer money to be used for qualifying students to pay for private school tuition. Texas lawmakers passed the legislation with a vote of 19-12, approved roughly a week earlier by the Texas House in historic vote. As a part of the $1 billion bill, most students who attended the accredited private school will receive $10,000 per year. Students with disabilities receive up to $30,000 per year, and homeschooled children will get $2,000. The Texas Comptroller's Office will develop and administer the Education Savings Account program. Now, Senate Bill 2 would initially put $1 billion over a 2-year period in a taxpayer dollar toward education savings account that families could use for private school tuition. Up to 20%, interestingly enough, of the program could go to wealthier families who earn 500% or more of the poverty rate, which would amount to $160,000 or more for a family of 4. In addition to that, schools, Texas, by the way, is ranked 38th. 38th among states in per student funding. That is in public schools, according to a 2024 report from the National Center for Education Statistics. Unlike public schools, which are generally required by law to educate every child in their community who seeks admission, the bill would not require private schools to accept certain schools who do not meet their admission standard. That means private schools can still deny any child the state places first in line for eligibility. Higher income families whose children were already attending private schools have primarily benefited from the large-scale voucher programs enacted in other states. The proposal would limit the state to spend no more than $1 billion, by the way, on the program during the first biennium. All right, Jimmy, we have been talking about this, and there's been a lot of rancor and a lot of fighting over this over the last several years, of course, with this last election. Greg Abbott, governor of the state of Texas, had pronounced that he had the votes now, and it was going to happen. And I believe he is scheduled to sign this legislation this upcoming Saturday, if my memory serves me correct.
Yeah, Tom, I think it's a good thing. I hate that there's not more money in there for homeschoolers. $2,000, is on the low end.
It is.
So I wish there was more money there for homeschoolers because you can easily spend $2,000 homeschooling your kid plus some. So whatever the rate is, I know the $10,000 is less than what the schools receive and the district receive per student. But if I had my way, there would be parity across the board. So whatever amount that we spend per student, whatever that comes out to be, 10,000, 12,000, I think it's about $14,000 here in Texas. Whoever's teaching the child, homeschool, charter school, private school, public school, gets the money. So that way there's fairness across the board and there's competition.
Well, it'll be interesting to see how this plays itself out. If we look at $1 billion over a 2-year period of time, and I believe that it was $10,000 per student or per household per se, or maybe that's probably per student.
Per student.
Then you're talking about maybe 100,000 students potentially that could be eligible to use these funds. Jimmy, that's a very, very small number when you, of course, consider the total amount of students that are being educated in the state of Texas. And considering that Texas, I was surprised that Texas was 38th, which makes, almost 40th out of 50 states in the United States in public school funding. So it'll be interesting to see how this plays itself out, Jimmy.
Well, Tom, we're a border state with Mexico.
Right.
We have a lot of children here. English as a second language is a big program here that places a lot of strain on our system that other states may not have. So that's not surprising that we're 38th out of 50 states. But hopefully this program will help with the bend the curve a little bit on the cost of education and hopefully provide some competition. Because what's needed really is competition into the system. You need really smart people to come in and figure out a way. If you want to make more money as a public school system, then find a way to improve the process so parents are willing to spend. And that's the problem here, is that parents don't have control over the money. But if you put the money in the hands of the parents and allow them to spend it, they're going to go out and look for where they can get the best value for the money. And that's what we want, rather than a bunch of bureaucrats who don't care about value and don't care about money because they have plenty of it. They have our money to go out and spend. So being frugal with it or responsible or getting the best bang for the buck is not their concern.
I would agree with that, Jimmy. And on top of that, it has been shown in other states, as was mentioned earlier, and people that I've talked to directly, that a lot of times the information and the availability on these private school vouchers in terms of when the money is available, where to go get it and access to that, a lot of times that kind of navigates a slippery slope in terms of who gets that information first. And so I would say for those who are out there who are candidates for this, you really need to make sure that you do your research and hold the state accountable and those who are going to be distributing this money accountable, because in a lot of cases, it does somehow end up going in the hands of people who can easily afford this money and who are in essence being subsidized. So for those who are going to take advantage of this program, you need to make sure that you do your research. You need to make sure that you hold the state accountable for their commitments and their promises to making sure that it is fair and equitable to everybody and not just being reserved for the wealthy who just want to get their money back.
Well, Tom, I agree with you to an extent. Even those who are a little more affluent, we should still treat them fairly also. And they pay property taxes, they pay into the system. So if you're going to find a way to give some of the money back and put it into the hands and to give parents a little bit more control, just because you're a little more affluent, you shouldn't be discriminated against.
Shouldn't be discriminated against, but it shouldn't be what they would call pork belly and subsidizing people who have more than enough money to pay for it itself, as opposed to folks who are in extremely bad school districts where there is a greater and dire need. Because if you look at the consequences of someone who is in a failing school district versus someone who is an affluent, those who are in affluent households are going to be able to afford a better education for their children than those who.
Well, there's an out for Tom for less affluent households. It's called homeschool. That's what I said. That's why the money should be evened out across the board. Maybe for $2,000 it's not worth to homeschool your child if you're poor, but maybe for $14,000 it is worth it.
Mm.
And so you don't have to have your child sit into a failing school where you can simply pay yourself the $14,000 and homeschool your child. You, we chronicled a number of kids on here that have excelled who are
Agreed.
homeschooled. So even if you're not formally trained, a college educated, a lot of you who just high school graduates can still do a better job at educating your child than the school system does. So that's why I say I wish the money was evened out across the board, and even less affluent families still have an option to take their kids out of a failing school and home and take responsibility and ownership, which is what you should do anyway, regardless of where your child goes to school, public, private, charter, or homeschool. You're ultimately responsible for their education.
I would agree. I would agree. And there are a heck of a lot more kids out there who are in failing school systems that have no
Yeah,
control over that than there are
that's
households
true.
in affluent neighborhoods who can send their kids anywhere just because they have the
The
money.
kids are just trapped in those failing schools. There are no other schools for them to go to, and their parents can't afford to take them out of school
Boy,
and put them in the private school. So even with a $10,000 voucher, with private schools costing $20, $30, $40,000, um, you still may not be able to afford private school when you're in a poor if you're poor. So
just saying.
yeah,
Just saying. All right, Jim, let's go ahead and go to our next story. Just found out about this very, very unfortunate, sad situation. But a lawsuit claims that a teacher who bullied a 11-year-old they are claiming is responsible for his suicide. 10-year-old a 10-year-old fifth grade child at Legacy Elementary School in Florida died by suicide after his parents say he was bullied by his teacher. The parents of Lewis Johnson filed a lawsuit nearly 2 years after his death against the Marion County, Florida School Board on this past Monday, I believe it was. The wrongful death lawsuit claims that the fifth grade teacher, Dawn White, bullied Johnson, a Legacy Elementary School, and encouraged other students to bully him as well. According to the lawsuit, White called Johnson stupid and said that he didn't know anything. I don't know why you're talking about what I don't know why you're talking because you don't know anything. You don't know nothing in class. Isn't that right, kids? The report concluded that White chronically inflicted psychological distress on several students by verbally insulting, humiliating, and embarrassing students. Johnson's parents say they reported White's actions to the school board and to school staff, but the school board and school administrators did nothing about it. The parents claimed that as a result of the school board's negligence, White caused Johnson to suffer depression and anxiety, which led to the death of the 10-year-old child. Shortly after Johnson's death, his parents went to the school and passed out suicide prevention flyers, which detailed the allegations against White. In an investigative report from 2023 into White, more than 24 students, witnesses were interviewed about White's behavior in class. 12 were in the classroom with Johnson. The students claimed that White would get mad when a student got an answer wrong. They said White was scary, that being a teacher, and would sometimes make students cry. This is a very, very unusual story, and this is the picture of the teacher, Dawn White. So, but this is a very unusual story, and I know we talk about parents' responsibility in ensuring that their kids are getting the best education possible, and I am anticipating and going to be tracking this story as it moves forward. But this is an extremely sad situation when you have a kid this young, and this is not an abnormal thing in the day where we have so many issues with mental health, but this is pretty sad.
a couple of things, Tom. One, what's wrong with the parents? If this is going on, why don't you just pull your child out of school? What is all this complaining to the school board and to the system and leaving your child in the classroom? Why don't you just take your child out? That's your option. That you don't have to leave your child. Your child is reporting that he's being bullied. And then the other thing, Tom, how soft are our kids today? I remember in the sixth grade. There are three teachers I remember from first grade to 12th grade. Ms. Whitaker, an English teacher, in the seventh grade. Mr. Johnson, my ninth grade science teacher, who encouraged me to pursue science, pursue science, and Miss Watkins, my sixth grade horror of a teacher. You talk about intimidating, Tom. She was one of those who she had a pad on her desk. If she called you and you got an answer wrong, guess what? You had to come up, put your hands on that desk, and she, bam, gave you a paddle for a wrong answer. You talk about some intimidation. Nobody wanted to raise their hand when she got asked a question. When she pointed at you, that was a kiss of death if you didn't know the damn answer. And she didn't discriminate. She went boys, girls, it didn't matter. She paddled kids in front of their parents who came to school to investigate why she's paddling kids. She was a horror, Tom. I mean, what is wrong with kids today that they somehow
Jimmy,
can't
you
put
know,
up with a little abuse from a teacher?
you know what? This is what's happening with our kids, and we've talked about this before, Jimmy. It started with something called timeout by one of the formerly most famous TV show host in the world, that being Oprah Winfrey. And then, of course, we had this whole movement in order to take, paddlings and or some type of punishment out of the classroom. And so you have to understand that this last really 2 generations of children are built a little bit differently, because the reality of it is
very differently, Tom.
Yeah. I mean, let's look at this. I mean, parents, and this comes with ownership of our generation trying to be friends with their kids compared to parents with their friends, rejecting the notion of how we were raised, where we got paddlings, we got butt whippings, whether it was by a switch, whether it was by a belt, extension cord, or whatever the case is. But they decided that they were going to overcorrect and talk to their kids, and not to say that you should have productive conversations with your kids, but not to the degree to which there is no honest respect and fear for you being the parent and the person that's ultimately keeping a roof over their heads, clothes on their back, and food in their stomach. And so really, when it comes right down to it, Jimmy, a large part of this has to do with the parents. But again, this is like a 10-year-old fifth grader. And being in a classroom and being not only harassed by a teacher, but then also students as well. I mean, kids don't know what they're doing. They're just kids. And so they're taking they're following the lead of the adult in the classroom. This is absolutely stunning. I don't know what's going to happen of this, Jimmy, but I would agree with you. Parents have to be responsible for taking
your child is that soft and that sensitive. The teachers are that abusive. Take your child out of the classroom.
Gotcha.
Be put into or if the school won't take them out of the classroom, take your child out of the school. The other option is you toughen your kids up to be prepared to deal with bullying and harassment. Hell, Ms. Watkins would call us all kind of names. Get your stupid ass up here. Put your hands on the desk. I mean, come on, Tom. I mean, you can't be called stupid anymore in school.
No,
not your
obviously. To your point, I get what you're saying. Kids shouldn't have to be in a harassing environment. They're there to learn, not to be harassed.
Okay, well, it's a tough world out there, and someone has to prepare you for it. And I'm sorry that this young man exercised this option because you didn't have to. I mean, somebody should have pulled him aside and told him, that one, you got to learn to take it. 2, the world that you're going to inherit is going to be much worse than this. So you need to learn to deal with it. And if you can't, then we're going to do everything we can to protect you and get you out of this classroom or get you into another school system or homeschool you. That's always your option. So if your child is this sensitive, but you need to prepare your child for the world that they're going to inherit. And the world is not nice, Tom. There are very mean people out there that's going to be much worse than this teacher. And a teacher calling you stupid is not the worst thing that's going to happen to you. And you want your teachers to encourage you, to look up to you, to call you to be encouraging. That was my Mr. Johnson. But I've had some teachers that were like this teacher in the 6th grade, and man, she was a horror. I'm telling you, Tom, over 12 years of public school, Miss Watkins is the one teacher that I definitely remember. I would never forget this lady for what she did to me in the 6th grade. But it worked though, Tom, because you did not bring your homework to our classroom. When she told you to study for a test, if you failed it, she wasn't writing notes. She didn't send messages home. She dealt with it in her classroom with that paddle. You were afraid to give wrong answers or to answer stuff incorrectly in her classroom. You didn't talk out of line. You didn't do anything to disrupt this lady. And the other thing, Tom, she claimed she had bad nerves. I never knew what bad nerves was, but she was a living example of what it was in the 6th grade when a child tried to understand what bad nerves meant. It meant you mess up in my classroom, I'm going to deal with it with a paddle. So it was pain to be inflicted on you when you deal with a person with bad nerves.
They took that out of schools a long time ago. Otherwise,
Unfortunately.
punishment. But either way, they took it out a long time ago, and this was not physical intimidation. This was psychological intimidation.
But she shouldn't be there, Tom. I mean,
I would agree, and I
that
think
teaching
that's
method
the
shouldn't
point.
be there.
And I think
So I
that's
hope
the
the school
point.
system gets rid of this lady. I hope the parents are successful in their lawsuit. But for other parents out there, if your child is being harassed by a teacher, it's either done for tough love to toughen them up to make them a better student, or if it's really just harassing, then take your child out of the classroom. Do whatever you have to do to take them out.
Right. Bottom line is that teacher needs to be gone. He wasn't the only one who was impacted by this, but unfortunately, this 10-year-old committed suicide a couple of years ago. That is something that a parent should not.
Very unfortunate.
Exactly. That's something that a parent should never have to deal with, is their kid committing suicide because they feel that they are being harassed, going through an excruciating amount of psychological pain, and a kid doesn't know how to communicate that effectively at 10 years old.
Sorry to hear that.
Best of luck to the parents on that. We'll definitely be tracking that as we go. Another one, another story, Jimmy, before we kind of switch turns and get to the second half. This is something that certain folks will want to be aware of, but the Department of Education, I guess we can now say the half Department of Education, or whatever's left of the Department of Education that hasn't been gutted now. If your student loans, people, are currently in default, the Department of Education may start garnishing your wages. Wage garnishment to pay off debt isn't new. However, some Americans have their wages garnished for paycheck for back taxes, child support, and or other debt, including student loans. It just might feel new since there were protections in place to allow borrowers in default time to catch up since the COVID-19 pandemic. But starting in May the 5th, payments will begin to come due. Student loans are considered in default after you've missed 270 days of payments, excluding payment pauses. It estimated that 5 million borrowers are in default and will have their loans sent to collections next week. That doesn't mean you'll see a hit to your paycheck. Starting next week, the Department of Education has to notify you 30 days ahead of the wage garnishment. The best way to check if your loans are in default is to visit studentaid.gov or your loan services website to check your loan standing. The federal government will pull a percentage of your take-home pay, that is, after deductions and taxes, up to 15%. Your tax refund or Social Security benefits could also be garnished, so it gets better. The two best options for most borrowers will be applying for a loan rehabilitation or a direct loan consolidation program. The third is to pay your loan in full. The loan rehabilitation programs allow you to get your student loans back in good standing after 9 months of voluntary on-time payments, and loan consolidation allows you to combine multiple eligible federal student loans into one new direct loan, which could potentially lower your payment.
So the point here, Tom, is that there are several options for you. Don't stick your head in the sand and think it's going to go away. It's not. The country is $34 trillion in debt. This new administration is serious about trying to deal with our financial problems, which we let get out of control. And people, it may sound like a bad thing, but really, all of this debt is being passed on to our children, our grandchildren, our great-grandchildren. So it's not fair that we've reaped the benefit of all this social spending and benefits that the government's been providing, and then our great-great-grandchildren are going to be the ones who have to pay for it. So let's do the right thing. If you owe student loan money, call these people up, make some kind of arrangement. They're not necessarily trying to just put you in a bad way. They just want you to pay the money back that you borrowed to go to school. So do the right thing. Get them one of these programs, pay your student loan off, and deal with it.
Well, Jimmy, this will be interesting. It does state, if you are experiencing extreme financial hardship or if you have a valid objection to the wage garnishment, you can request a hearing. To do this, you'll need to fill out the request for review form that should be delivered along with your wage garnishment notice. So you do have some options there, but you will need to take notice of this, Jimmy. And, to your point, don't think all of a sudden it's just going to disappear and go away. Obviously, it's been, 5 years since the pandemic, and a lot of this stuff was put on halt. And so now the proverbial boogeyman is coming back for their money.
Yes. So I know a lot of people had their loans forgiven. That administration is gone.
Yep.
So this is a new regime. So if you owe still if you owe it, pay it back. If you can't pay it back, make arrangements. So that's the best that you can do. And if you're in such a dire strait you can't do either one of those, request a hearing, tell it to a judge, and see how much they're willing to write off, so you can still deal with the balance.
Absolutely, folks. I would say get ahead of this one if you know that you're in that situation. All right, Jimmy. We have one comment from our last stories from Mr. Vincent. Said school system failed the parent in that case because the parents obviously did go to the school and unfortunately they didn't do anything.
Yeah, they did, Tom. So the parents did the right thing with the first step. My issue with the parents is after that failed, don't leave your child in the damn classroom.
Right.
So what? The school system, which is a bunch of bureaucrats who don't care about your child, left your child in that classroom. You should have still either pull your child out at that point if they're not going to do anything about it. You don't get off the hook simply because you said, well, I called 911 and nobody came or they came late. Well, no, you still have a responsibility. Even if you try to do the right thing, you still have a responsibility ultimately because you're the one who's ultimately responsible for the child. So you can't just blame it all on the school system. If they didn't do the right thing, then the next step is for you to ultimately do the right thing and pull your child out.
All right. There you have it from JR.
Thanks for the comment, Vincent. We have together.
All right, Jimmy. Now we are 29 minutes and counting to the top of the hour. We're going to go ahead and switch from our stories in education and politics to sports, Jimmy. And we've had a whopping last week or so when it comes to sports, Jimmy. And this is going to be, I think, a pretty thoughtful conversation, and one in particular that our young men need to be paying attention to, and parents who have young men or even older men in their life need to pay attention to. Let's first get to the debacle that has come with Shannon Sharpe recently. ESPN star Shannon Sharpe, many of you who follow sports may know this face and may know this name, but he has really over the last couple of years blown up because he has started his own podcast and built his own brand, bro. He was recently celebrated the news that his podcast business was so booming that he was going to earn a $100 million deal with ESPN. But the celebration was very short-lived, as in the next breath, he announced that he was stepping away from television as he defends himself against sexual assault accusations. A $50 million lawsuit stems from a relationship that he had allegedly with a 19-year-old woman. Trish Sharpe claims was entirely consensual. Sharpe indicated the relationship in question was 100% consensual. Sharpe maintains that his case is a matter of blackmail, at least for now. He won't be addressing this or any other topics on ESPN airwaves. He does still have his show and his nightly podcast where he talks about the latest news when it comes to sports and or other topics, Jimmy. And, you know, this, hate to say it, is another situation where you have a brother who is kind of up in his game and something like this happens.
Well, Tom, you know, once again, Shannon Sharpe is kind of our age.
He is. He's 56.
And here's the thing. He's too old to be that stupid. I'm sorry. There's no way in the world that if I were out and about and some 19-year-old girl approached me, that, I mean, I may be flattered, but I know there's nothing culturally we have in common. We don't like the same music. We don't go to the same places. We don't live those kind of lives where we have anything in common. What in the world is Shannon Sharpe doing fooling around with a 19-year-old girl? You know that's nothing but trouble. That's nothing but a disaster waiting to happen. That somehow nothing good is going to come out of this. There's no way in the world, you know, you can convince me that she's in love with Shannon Sharpe to be in a relationship with him. This is strictly about money and what you can get out of him. So if that's being the case, then you need to keep it about money. That whenever y'all parted ways, there should have been a severance check waiting for to keep her mouth shut with an NDA attached to it. That's how you deal with these things. Don't allow these things to blow. $100 million paycheck for his podcast business. I think he had like 5 or 6 different shows on social media. You know, and ESPN is getting ready to take them over for $100 million deal, and now it's going down the drain over this. a relationship with a 19-year-old girl that you should have known better? Jeez, man, how stupid are you?
Well, Jimmy, this is a bad situation for Shannon Sharpe, his family, those who are his fans, count them their fans, so on and so forth. It is not. It's not a good look, and the reality of it is it kind of falls in line to the big jock gets failed, by some princess. And I don't mean princess literally or even figuratively for that matter. But the reality of it is we still live in America, and ultimately there's a community of folks who don't like seeing brothers with their women. And this, again, to your point, and I will agree with you on this, I would vehemently disagree with someone who is at the grandfather age messing around with somebody, stringy-haired 19-year-old who literally has nothing to lose and everything to gain.
Everything to gain.
From this liaison. And that's the issue that I'm having, is looking at it from an economic point of view. He had everything to lose. She had everything to gain. This is
people around him to pull him to the side and say, hey, yeah, dude, you may want to leave that alone. That's way too young. You're taking on too much, you're exposing yourself too much dealing with that. I mean, not a lawyer, an advisor, publicist, nobody could pull him aside and say anything to him. Family members, cousins. I know, he's probably a lot of people on the payroll around him, and you don't have anyone that's honest enough. Hell, I'm not even your friend or know you, and I would have pulled you aside and just told you, hey, dude, you need to leave that alone, man. That's nothing but trouble.
Yeah, and I don't know, Jimmy. I don't know how many times people have to learn this, whether in not the same situation, whether it's Tiger, whether it's Diddy, not the same situations, or a ton of other men who go through this similar situation thinking that they've made it, literally, and then make a misstep like this. Economically, this is a disaster, because let me be very clear with you. Unlike folks of other communities who can do egregious things and get 9 lives, that particularly doesn't seem to happen with most of the entertainers, talk show hosts, and other folks within our community. Very, very rare situation. Herb Alpert is an anomaly. I knew he got caught up with some prostitute that he bit, and she filed something against him. She happened to be black. That dude got another chance. Rob Lowe got caught with a teenager underage. He is back on the track again. But that just don't happen for people like Shannon Sharpe. The good news is he still got his platform. He owns it. But again, he had absolutely nothing to gain with this individual, and it was just a perfect setup. When you look at someone, I'm not going to say in every case. One thing that my grandmother, God rest her soul, told me a long time ago, and she was speaking to me as a black man. She was like, you know what? There's nothing wrong with loving who you love, but in this country, if you have something going for you, and if you are going to be seeing someone, let's be very clear, from the white community, that being a white woman, she needs to have at least as much to lose as you got to lose, because you're going to have a bullseye on your back. And that's just facts. And the more high profile you are, the more money you make, and the more famous you are, the bigger that bullseye is going to be. It may not be the politically correct thing to say, but it happens over and over and over again.
It does, Tom. And it's called an NDA with a severance package at the end of it. A parachute for them so they can have a safe landing. You want to incentivize people, once the relationship is over with, to walk away and keep their mouth shut and not be writing tell-all books, doing tell-all interviews, or worse, taking you to court and suing you. So I don't understand why the publicist, lawyer, his advisor, why the agent, why there wasn't someone around him to tell this fool how to handle this. Hell, if you don't know how to handle your affairs, give me a call. I'll be your public advisor and tell you what to do in these situations. Hell, I would have went talk to the young lady and got to sign the contract personally with a check in my hand. And this would have been dealt with totally different. You'd have your $100 million deal, Shay, whatever his nickname is, if you had come to me for advice. What's our next story, Tom? We shouldn't be talking about and parading foolish people doing foolish things.
But this is news. This is number one. This is news, and this is what mothers and young brothers need to understand and listen to, because at the end of the day, if you are a black male in America, you're going to have a target on your back, regardless of how good you are, regardless of how well you do in school, etc. I have a couple of comments that I want to acknowledge. Cousin Audrey K, as the saying goes, your brand experience and accolades can get you into opening doors, but all it takes is your lack of your character or bad judgment will surely close them very fast. And
Cousin Audrey is telling the truth. Speak, preach,
yeah,
girl.
absolutely. And then we also got a statement from Mr. V. Unfortunately, Shannon Sharpe is losing sponsorship supporting his podcast. Yeah, that's going to happen. He's already lost a $100 million deal with ESPN. And obviously, I think that he was trying to put 10 millions out there to make this go away to the young lady. And I mean, the thing about it is, if you already lost $100 million and you're trying to get 10 million to go away, if you are innocent, go to court. Say, hey, this didn't happen. It was consensual. If you believe in what you're saying, then 10 million, that's a lot of money.
Tom, even if he was innocent, 10 million is still a drop in the bucket for what it's going to cost him. This is not a innocence versus guilty payment. This is a tax on being stupid. This is what you're going to have to pay for just being stupid. Whether you're innocent or not, it doesn't even matter now, because you can go to court like Michael Irvin. Okay, we found out that Michael Irvin was innocent of his charges, but the damage was done. He was already kicked off the Super Bowl announcement team, and there's no telling how much of a financial impact that whole story cost him. So it's not whether you're guilty or innocent. It's that you don't put yourself in position for stuff like this to happen to you. This is why rich people don't deal with poor people. Why famous people don't like dealing with non-famous people. You stay in your lane and you stay with a group of people who have as much to lose as you do if something goes south. So they keep their mouth shut and they know how to deal with things. But a wealthy person who's famous celebrity dealing with, I don't mean to disparage a young lady. I don't know anything about her, but obviously, she wasn't in this for true love. That's not what she was looking for. And if you turn down a $10 million paycheck, then obviously your people around you are telling you that, girl, there's a lot more to be gained. Stick to your guns, because we may be able to get the $50 million, if this goes to court. So who knows?
Well, we wish him the best of luck in this. I certainly hope that these allegations are not factual. I mean, at the end of the day, you have to make intelligent decisions if you're going to do something like this. To your point, Jimmy, deal with the professional. And I don't know. Either way, she's a legal adult, but no, man.
Don't do it. What's our next story, T?
All right, next story, Jimmy, is, of course, many of you out there, like probably, both of us were probably watching the draft last week, the NFL draft, and saw the historic fall of one of the probably most promising prospects in the draft, that being Shedeur Sanders, the eldest son of Deion Primetime Sanders, who at one time was projected to be a top 3 pick, possibly a top 2 pick, and recently fell to the 5th round and literally was the second quarterback picked up by the team that finally drafted him, the Cleveland Browns, after they picked Dylan Gabriel from Oregon. This is a historic fall of catastrophic proportions, Jimmy, that I don't think I've ever seen. I thought that Lamar Jackson's fall was catastrophic, when he was drafted and he was considered to be a top 5 pick and was the last pick in the NFL draft. But I don't think I've ever seen anything like this.
Okay, Tom, this is not, it is bad from the way it was presented. But when you look at what happened behind the scenes, then it becomes understandable. First of all, Shedeur is the son of Deion Sanders. Now, we know Deion, when he came out of college, he went to the combines in a limo. He went out there on the track. He ran the 40 and the 4.2, and then he went back to the limo and left. That was all. He wasn't interviewing, no workouts, no agility, nothing. But you knew that Deion Sanders had all-pro NFL skills in college. You knew that it was potentially that he could be a Hall of Famer if he had a good NFL career, and all those things happened. That being said, his son, Tom, does not project Hall of Fame abilities in college. He did some good things back at Jackson State. He did some decent things at Colorado. They retired his number. Okay, great. But you don't look at him and say Hall of Fame. You don't look at him and say All Pro in the NFL. And on top of that, you go to the combines. You don't interview. You telling teams that you're not going to interview and answer questions. One of the things for a quarterback, Tom, at the combines is they pull up footage of bad plays that you made, and they have you to watch them and then give a question and answer series on what you were thinking about. Why did you make that throw? Why did you make that play? What was going through your head, so you can get a feel for how you think, and then what did you do to recover from it. He decided he wasn't going to interview. He wasn't going to answer any questions. On top of that, there were certain teams he didn't want to talk to. Him and his dad, Dion, in the interview, said this is going to be an Eli moment. Well, we know the story with Eli. He was drafted. He didn't want to go to the team he was drafted by, and that team was forced to trade him to the Giants.
Right.
Well, Dion said there are certain teams that he's already picked out for his players, for Shedeur, for Hunter, and for the running back. I know what teams I want them to be drafted by and what position. And if you're not one of those teams, it's going to be Eli moment. Well, Tom, you know what? If you have all-world ability, Hall of Fame abilities in college, then teams will put up with that kind of nonsense from you because they figure you have the skills to back it up. You can walk the walk to back up your talk. But in this particular case, Shedeur, Tom, had a pretty good record, decent story to tell. But I'm sorry, you didn't have your walk didn't quite match your talk. You wasn't in a position to snub your nose at teams doing interviews, not go work out for teams, not participate in the combine, decide which teams you can be drafted by and which teams you can't be drafted by. Tom, you don't have those kind of abilities and skills. You didn't put up those kind of records in school to be able to dictate that kind of walk. So it doesn't surprise me that behind the scenes, teams are like, yeah, we don't want to deal with that. Then on top of that, his pesky dad, who has a big microphone in public arena, as soon as his son has a pretty good game and there's a controversy at quarterback, well, my son should be starting. He played well enough to do this and played well enough to do that. He should be starting out there or be given that chance. What teams want to put up with that? So if they'll put up with it, Tom, we know the NFL will put up with a lot from players if you have the talent that they want. But if you don't have that talent or your talent, or they figure they can get that talent just as easy from somebody else who's less difficult, then guess what? This is a prime example of what not to do. Put a suit on, go to interviews, humble yourself, be a choir boy during draft time, and do everything you can to improve your stock. Don't give teams an incentive to pass you up thinking that you're going to be a headache and a problem.
Well, Jimmy, this is not the first, fifth, or the 10th player that decided that they were not going to work out, during these drills that some people call it.
You do so at your risk, Tom.
I understand, but there are several. But there are several top. There are several top quarterbacks who decided they weren't going to do this. And the reality of it is, during the Archie and Eli Manning situation, it's a culture difference in terms of the two of them. We'll see. I mean, the NFL is supposed to be a production-based league. I mean, you may hire coaches in the NFL for interviews, but you draft based upon talent and prospects. And let's be very clear, Colorado
draft for most positions. But a quarterback could potentially be the face of your team. And yes, you want to make sure they have the right character as the face of your team. So a quarterback is a little different than all the other positions.
I'm not talking about other positions.
But quarterback is a little different, Tom. So character matters.
I get that. My point was I was comparing the head coach to a quarterback. And when I say that to this. You can interview a head coach all day, what you like or what you don't like. But at the end of the day, when it comes down to certain positions on the field, and the quarterback in particular, it is a production-based league. And if you look at Shedeur's numbers compared to some of the other guys, I think there were 5 who were drafted ahead of him. Cam Ward, no issue with him being selected number 1. That was no surprise. But when you consider some of the other ones, maybe not all of them, but a few of them, I mean, Jackson Dart was picked up I think by the New York Giants at 25. And he's a solid quarterback. I've seen him play. But what I've also seen him do is fold in big games multiple times when they needed wins. And the reality of it is the New York Giants are a good team. I don't know if they're going to be a good team for a long time, but if you want someone who's going to turn around the fortunes of your franchise like a Jaden Daniels did for the Washington Commanders, you got to have a different type of dude. Jaden Daniels showed that last year. I saw Jackson Dart, who is a good quarterback, a solid quarterback, but I saw him fold during games that they had to have when Ole Miss was really in a position to vie for becoming the number one team in the SEC at the time. Tyler Show, solid quarterback, but if you compare anything on the field with Shedeur Sanders, there's just no comparison.
Once again, Tom, you're proving my case, man. A good talent team, 4 rounds of teams in the NFL. Everybody gets picks, multiple picks, sometimes depending on trades and where you're at. But everybody's getting a pick. All these teams passed on him multiple times. The fifth round is a no-brainer. I mean, if there's somebody who could just sniff the ball in the 5th round, they'll pick up. That's almost like, 5th, 6th, and 7th, we're not expecting to get anything talent-wise. If we get something, great, but we're not really expecting a Hall of Famer to be in the 5th, 6th, and 7th round. So for all these teams to pass on him, there had to be a good reason, Tom. And you say it's a production-based league. Yes, it is a production-based league. So that lets you know the behind-the-scenes stuff was so egregious, more so than the stuff that we know of. This is a little stuff that leaked out so far. But you got scouts, you have general managers, you have the presidents and vice presidents of operations. All these folks who are involved in decision-making as far as a draft. And all these players, all these people from multiple teams, all of the teams passed on him in the first 4 rounds. All of them, Tom. So they can't all be prejudiced. They can't all be disliking the Sanders. They can't all be wrong. There has to be at some point some acknowledgement.
No, they are practically all of them were wrong. That's the whole point. Now they might be in their feelings.
Okay, Tom, that's what we disagree. That many people are not going to be wrong.
Clear. If you're drafting with that much draft capital, you're drafting for someone who's going to make a difference on your team. That's what the 1st and the 2nd round, and to a certain degree, the 3rd round is going to look like. And there are enough teams who need a solid quarterback who can turn down their fortunes that, you know what, maybe you can make, a couple of boneheaded decisions in the 3rd, 4th, 5th rounds. You have up to 7 rounds in the NFL draft. But, when it comes to certain positions, we've seen what a good quarterback can do. And at the end of the day, I understand your point about Dion and things that he may have said. But, okay, Shedeur is a little bit different. And if you look at somebody who's going to perform and you've seen this dude, and that dude is that dude, if you've ever watched him play, the Colorado Buffaloes were not the 1st or the 2nd best team in the Big 12. But, I mean, when you saw him on the field and you see what he can do and you want to turn around your fortunes, you cannot tell me that he is a 5th round worthy quarterback.
Yes, Tom, he's a 5th round. Here's the thing. Historically, if you're not drafted in the 1st round, as a top quarterback, or in the 2nd round, then you generally get drafted in the 4th and 5th round for quarterbacks. That's just historically how it always works out. Most quarterbacks who are not 1st rounders end up being 4th rounders. So that's not surprising that since he didn't go top of the draft.
But the question is the why part on the 1st, God forbid not the 2nd round.
This is where, once again, you're not focusing on that his dad's behavior, interviews. Now, I remember when there was some talk about him being considered for coach of the Cowboys. And his comment, there were comments that were leaked out. I don't know if he actually said it or not, but they were attributed to him that if he were to leave Colorado and go coach at the NFL level, then that team would not be willing to draft his son. Now we got another LeBron situation on. There is just too much to deal with the Sanders, and then him being a black man and everybody being black sensitive and not want to say anything against the black person, especially in the NFL. I can understand teams being a little worried about drafting him. There's just too much with him and his dad. He played with his dad at Jackson State. He played with his dad at Colorado. His dad talking about, if I'm a head coach, you have to draft my son. And what team you want my son to go play with, we already know. And if he don't get drafted by the right team, it's going to be Eli moment. Tom, that is a lot of crap to be dealing with for a quarterback who's not like all universe. He was good, but he wasn't like the greatest coming out of college that we've ever seen. And now if he was,
well, that's rare. I mean,
if he was all universe, Tom,
let's be very clear.
somebody would have put up with all
Tom
that and
Brady
drafted.
Tom Brady himself, the GOAT, was not the greatest coming out of college.
Yeah, and Tom Brady was like a fourth rounder. That's my point.
Sixth.
Is that if you
Fourth, you're right, fourth.
Was he fourth or sixth? I think he was later in the draft. But if you don't get drafted in the first round high, then the fourth round is normally where you start picking up quarterbacks. So you have other skill position, linemen, receiver. I mean, all those are generally for late first round, second and third. Generally, you go back to the fourth round, start picking up quarterbacks at that point. So that's just historically how the draft works out. So it's not surprising. So he didn't go in the fourth round; he went in the fifth round. But once again, the luggage surrounding him was so bad that knocked him out of the first round. So he go from a guaranteed $22 million if he had been drafted in the first round to guaranteed maybe $4 million if he makes it to the roster as a fifth round draft pick as quarterback. So that's just your behavior, your dad's behavior. And then on draft day, rather than just putting a suit on and looking like a normal person, you're out there with your Flavor Flav necklace on. I don't even know what it said. I'm just saying he conducted.
The majority of those guys got too much blame for me in the first place.
Yeah, Tom, and
even Travis Hunter himself had on this loud pink suit.
Travis Hunter just won a Heisman. Travis Hunter's already shown you what he can do. So if you want Travis Hunter talent,
it doesn't mean that you need to put on this.
Moved up to get him because he was worth it to them. So it doesn't matter what he was wearing.
That's my point. Why does what Shedeur Sanders wearing matter? If you had a
who was number the quarterback of a team,
but they didn't know
the quarterback of a team. He could. Shedeur could end up winning the quarterback position in Cleveland and end up being the face of the franchise in Cleveland. So it's a good potential because he has that skill that he can win out that job.
I would agree. If you look at the Cleveland Browns, to your point, they got Joe Flacco. They got an injured.
2 years he probably will be starter.
They've got Kenny Pickett, who couldn't do it in Pittsburgh, and then they got Gabriel Dillon for Oregon, who there's no comparison when you look at the throwing ability.
I like the Oregon quarterback, man. I thought he was. I thought he played well.
No, he was good. I mean, he is a very good mobile quarterback and relatively accurate. But when you look at the level of accuracy, if you look at the level of accuracy and efficiency of Shedeur Sanders versus him, no.
Well,
for there to be that much of a difference, I believe Gabriel Dillon was put in. I believe he was a second. No, he was a third round, pick 30 versus pick 144. There's that much difference. You have your dad's attitude and walk, but you don't have your dad's ability and skills for his impact in the game. Nobody does.
Well, I mean, but you knew D.I. was special in college.
Yeah,
you don't know Shedeur was special in college. So, Tom, if you're going to walk the walk, you're going to talk the talk, you got to be able to walk the walk. And his walk just didn't match his talk. So he should have humbled himself and realized that he's interviewing. This is a job in the NFL. This interview. Don't be going there and say, I'm not interviewing with people. I don't want to work for you. You don't have that choice when teams are drafting you and you want to make it to the NFL. So humble yourself, do and say what you have to say. He should have called me once again. I would have coached you rather than listen to your dad, who's a Hall of Famer, who obviously you think you could do what your dad did, but you don't have your dad's ability for his impact on the game. So I would have told you to put a suit on, look like a choir boy, say all the right things, go work out at the combine, interview with everybody, and put yourself, let them know that you're ready to take on this responsibility. I'm ready to be the face of your franchise and to win games for you. Don't put that in question, Tom. They have to wonder what kind of player you're going to be, and if you are the face of the franchise, what kind of representative you're going to be.
Well, we will see how this thing pans out. I wish him the best of luck.
Yes, he'll be okay, Tommy.
Clearly, it was collusion among the owners, and this is kind of one of them.
No collusion, Tom. Don't say that. That's against the rules.
Come on, Jimmy.
There's no collusion by the owners, Tom. That's against the rules.
Jimmy,
They have scouts. They have plenty of people to make these decisions, and all these teams didn't get together because if they did, somebody would have leaked that out by now. You cannot keep that secret. All these 32 organizations.
They don't have to keep it secret. It's understood. This is one of them stay in your place boy type of moments.
Okay, Tom. Well, if I understand it's a bad pick to use in my first round and everybody else understands it too, that's not collusion. That's just us deciding coming to the conclusion that he's a bad pick in the first round,
Oh, bad
second
pick.
round, third round,
Oh,
fourth round.
really? All right.
We'll take a chance on him in the fifth round where it's safe because we don't care about the fifth round pick anyway.
Okay. Well, there will be
Move on. What's the next story?
I think that was it, Jim. I think the only thing
We had a little bit of
the only thing that we haven't addressed is the NBA playoffs, which we started about briefly last week. So in the West, the Oklahoma City Thunder have they pretty much swept the Grizzlies. The Rockets and the Golden State Warriors are playing right now, but it looks like the Rockets are going to take that game. They are almost 20 points ahead with about 3 minutes left.
I watched the game the other night where Golden State took them down. Houston had their chance. They played really good defense. They just keep letting the Rockets off the hook down the stretch, man. And then, Tom, we know that these 20-point leads are not safe. The Clippers have been down to Denver twice over 20 points. One of those games they came back and won. And then, of course, last night they almost came back until Murray put them away with about 90 seconds. He put up like 11 points and finally put them too far behind with too little time left. But Houston better get their act together, man. Y'all letting go.
I don't know if Houston is going to run 3 in a row against Golden State.
No, they're not, Tom.
Yeah, and the same thing with the Lakers. They are down 3-1 against the Minnesota Timberwolves. I would say I would take the Lakers tonight, but I don't know that I see 3 in a row.
Well, here's the thing, though, man. Is Ant-Man with the Lakers? He's determined. Now, he said LeBron he was a big fan of LeBron, man. But here's your chance to take down LeBron and Luka and establish yourself as one of the premier players.
That would be a major statement.
So he is highly motivated that he gets to go up against Armor mentioned GOAT and Luka, who could potentially be in that conversation by the time he finished his career. And then you took both of them down as a young man. So,
well, I would say this much: Luka is, he is a great player. He is a great offensive juggernaut. But until he gets to the point where he understands that there's such a thing called defense, he can
defense, rebounding, block shots, steals.
No, he says no. Let the other 4 guys do that. And in the East, Jimmy, it's the second round. Said you got the Cleveland Cavaliers, who took out the Heat yesterday, playing the Pacers, who took out the Bucks yesterday. And so Cleveland and Indianapolis are going to be playing each other. And then the Celtics, who took out the Magic last night, are going to be waiting on the winner of the New York Knicks and the Pistons. The Knicks are up 3-2 right now.
Yeah, I watched the Knicks the other night play, man. And once again, boys, like, the Mavs had Brunson on their team, and we let him go.
Yeah, and you know why they let him go? For Luka.
I mean, God, I can imagine where we would been if they could somehow find a way to kept him and Luka on the same team.
But they didn't want him to be the face. They wanted Luka to be the face. And
it's okay. Let Luka be the face, man.
And Jalen, but he's no longer with the team. And Jalen Brunson is he is a beast.
He is a beast, man.
He is
and Kyrie also is an assassin, man. But
Can you imagine, Jimmy?
Murray hadn't been. Not Brunson hadn't been hurt though.
I know he does have some injury issues. But can you imagine if Kyrie Irving and Brunson were on that Mavericks team now and they were healthy? Oh my goodness!
I know, boy. I was like, boy, we really let that one go, man. On that decision to let him go, man, because he's been a beast ever since he left. He was a beast with us, which is why they should have kept him. But he has matured into just a top-notch clutch player, man, for his size in that position, man. So,
well, the challenge with that is that at the time the ball was going through Jalen Brunson moves the ball up the field. He speeds the game up. Luka will give you, 35 to 40 points on a consistent basis, but he slows the ball game down. And when he doesn't have the ball, he is like a brick on the court.
True. Yeah, that is true. And so, but looking at the East, man, I look up and down that East roster, and I still think Cleveland is going to come out of that in the championship, man. And we'll see how it goes in the West here, man. Whether it's Oklahoma, maybe Golden State may make a run, man. They've been playing pretty well since they made the trade. I'm sorry, not the trade. I guess it is. You can call it a trade, man.
Trade.
They've been playing extremely well since then, man. So, but then, like I said, you got some. Everybody's kind of hungry in the West, man, and still got Denver out there, man, who's not going away easily, man. And the Clippers, they've been down a little bit, but they've shown they have the ability to come back, even from deep deficits. They didn't do it the other night. Denver put them away. Actually, Murray put them away.
Yeah.
Tom, it was a 22-point game, and I'm thinking, okay, well, is this going to be another night where the Clippers come back, or is Denver just going to go ahead and bury them? And then I look up in the fourth quarter. The Clippers started making their run. They got down to 9 points. They called timeout. I think, oh man, here we go again. It's getting ready to be a tight game. They still got 5-6 minutes left in the fourth quarter, so they can continue to make a run at this to make this interesting. And man, Murray went into overdrive.
Yep.
He pumped up about 11 points in about a minute, about 90 minutes, 2 minutes. But before you know it, it's back up to 20. And with like 2 minutes left, and it was pretty much going to be over with at that point. So you got to have some studs on your team, man, that when other teams start making a run, that you have a response to it, man. And you need stud players that can do that.
True that. All right, Jimmy. We have exhausted our agenda for this evening.
All right.
We want to thank everybody who has joined us this evening. If you haven't, make sure you hit that like button, share this information with anybody else so they can be the smartest person on the block other than you. And, of course, make sure that you join us next Wednesday because, Jimmy, if it is Wednesday night.
It's certainly Black Man Speak. We'll be here next week, same time, same channel.
Good evening, everyone.